I don't need to see.
All right, I am here with Louise Potter. Hey, Louise.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. So you are our Ohio broker for EXP, and we're going to talk today about agency and who really is your client. Can you give us a scenario, create some context for us? Why are we talking about this?
Well, we see this a lot where, you're dealing with Sally Sue, who's in her 80s. She's wanting to sell her home. She's going to, downsize, move someplace else. And, she's your client, but yet her son is talking to you and calling and asking questions and telling you to do certain things. And you should do this and you should do that because Sally's older and she just doesn't have the energy to really deal with all of this stuff. And he's the one who's going to make these decisions.
That's a little touchy.
It's a little against agency.
But what if, okay, so I guess I have some clarifying questions. So
Sure.
in the original appointment and listing presentation or whatever, was he present with Sally?
No, he wasn't there.
He wasn't there. Did Sally does he have power of attorney over?
That's the first question you ask. I'm sorry, Sally's my client.
Right.
Do you have a real estate specific power of attorney with Sally?
Well, and I think if I think that's a good best practice if you have an older client. I really ask who's helping you, who's a point of contact.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
have some clients that are older and they're like, I can do it. It's not a problem. And then some that are like my son, my daughter, my sister, whatever it is, right? This person is helping me and having that conversation up front.
Well, and sometimes you get into the transaction and you're moving through it and you don't even know the son exists. And all of a sudden you've got a call from this person who's screaming and yelling at you because their mother is upset or something, something is happening that they don't feel is right. And you're taking advantage. And, at that point, you just can't really talk to them.
You just hang up. You say, wait,
no,
hello,
we're done.
Hello, click.
That's the problem with cell phones. You can't get the good slam, but it's, it's
often lose reception. So you can be wait, I'm driving.
I can't hear you anymore. No, it's just, hey, Charlie, I understand your frustration, but, unfortunately, the laws here in Ohio and in most states of agency preclude me from speaking to you unless I've got permission from Sally.
What is okay, so
let's get Sally on the phone.
Yeah.
Or, do you have something like a power of attorney that's specific to the sale of this home so that you can talk to me? Those are the things that I need in order to be able to, because, I could get in a lot of trouble for talking to you out of school.
But what are the things that are against agency? Because a number of things are public information, right? But
sure.
what is not? I imagine financial stuff.
Financial would be, something that we have the duty of confidentiality. So everything that you know about that client should be confidential. You can't share it without that client's permission. And that includes what price they paid for the home. That includes their reason for moving. That includes any of those things. Now, material defects that you know about, you do have to disclose those, that kind of thing you need to. But anything you know about the client, you've got to keep confidential unless you have permission to share that. So, when you're sitting there having a cup of coffee and, they're moving to, Arkansas and they're just really bummed about it, but, they got to go and they've only got 3 weeks to sell their home.
Oh,
you better have permission to share that.
Right.
Because if you don't, you just violated agency. So, team members, that's why our agency policy is, whatever the person's agency is on the team, everybody's agency is the same.
Right.
Because as you're sitting there in the office and you're talking, it's just natural human nature to start talking about these things.
This can also get really, really sticky because most agents, they work with their sphere of influence. So it's people they know, it's family, it's friends, and everybody kind of knows everybody else. And I can imagine that this gets really sticky when it's you only really help people in your friend group or in your family, and your cousin, you're listing your cousin's house, and your aunt wants to know or is saying something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Or else you're uninvited from Christmas dinner, I mean,
Hopefully not.
it can happen.
This is
People
why
are
we prospect
strange.
people. Talk to strangers.
Yeah, keep it. Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, when I first got licensed, I grew up in a small community within Columbus.
Hmm.
I did not work that community because there I was still 17 years old.
Right,
Today I'm
exactly.
still 17 years old, except for most of those people are now dead. But I went to another community that I knew to start my business and grew it from there with people I didn't know.
So
Because it was
most agents still work with people they do know, and this can
true.
get really sticky.
Right. But I mean, I developed a sphere list and I worked that,
Of course.
that was just that small community. It's like, I went to
No
school with too
thanks.
many of those people. Yeah.
What are your tips? Okay, so I imagine that some people are thinking like, oh crap, I've probably violated agency, right? So like,
Yeah.
what are your tips moving forward for agents where this could happen? There's a potential for this.
It's real simple. Keep your mouth shut.
Oh, shut the hell up.
Yeah, pretty much. Just keep your mouth shut. And one other I want to mention, which is really predominant, is divorce situations.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about that.
Because, divorce situations, you've got two parties who are entitled, whether they have it by
Your
dower
agency is with
rights or
both of them potentially.
your agency is with both of them. So, because they're both the seller of that property.
Right.
So, whatever you communicate to one should be communicated to all. And the reason for the divorce and all that good, juicy stuff that's going on, the stuff that you've seen, heard, and experienced, got to keep your mouth shut.
We find it best in divorce situations to keep everybody on like a group text or a group email, because most people mind their manners when they're on a group chat. Most people.
Well, I prefer an email.
Yeah.
And that comes from the litigation attorneys because email is more complete and it's easier to search and
True.
keep
Yeah.
than a text.
Right.
If you're doing texts, you better be keeping those someplace.
Yeah.
So, but you email everybody. So nobody can say you never told me that.
Or you told this person that and you told me something else. This is the way everybody has the same information.
I had a situation where an agent said, "Oh, yeah, they're getting divorced, but he said he'd sign everything at closing. It'll be okay."
That's the biggest lie.
They walked in. He said, "I'll sign everything if you give me $20,000."
Right.
No closing.
We've had this. I mean, you only have to bump your head once or twice to realize that somebody who's like, oh, well, that, she handles all of it or he handles all of it. No, well, you need to actively participate in this process because you have an opinion.
Yep. My favorite closing was the wife, the husband was signing off and the soon to be ex-wife, or well, she was ex by that point because she was buying something else. He was standing behind his chair at closing, waiting for him to finish signing. And when the title person handed the check over, she reached over, took it out of her hand and turned around and walked out the door. It was like, well, that was quick. There you go.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Well, if people have specific questions about agency, I know if they're at EXP, it's easy to get a hold of you through the chat. But what if they're not at EXP? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
They can either give me a call at 614-226-6981, or feel free to reach out to me by email at Louise, Louise, .Potter, Potter, at exprealty.net.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Louise.
Thank you.